Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, to another episode of the Danial Teaches Experience. My name is Daniel. My friends, we have an extra special guest here today. We're joined by the one, Sarah. Sarah, how are you?
Oh, thank you. I'm really good, thank you. How are you?
Absolutely sensational.
That is fantastic to hear. I'm
Now,
so glad.
yeah, I'm so glad that we're here too. I'm so glad that we have this energy, and I'm so glad for you, my friend. Now, my friends, when we say we have energy, it's one thing for me to say I have energy. It's 2 p.m, but for my friend Sarah here, it's 6:30 in the morning. Now that takes guts. That takes dedication.
Dedication I have to be on this podcast, honestly, it just shows that it's going to be a great day. Great morning,
Exactly.
day.
Exactly. And with that energy, my friends, this episode is going to be all about studying, productivity, tips for students, and why, we think that a lot of these studying tips get slept on by a lot of professors and other people, where you're just kind of supposed to figure it out on your own. Are flashcards the best way to go for you? Are you a visual learner, auditory learner, and all that bunch of stuff? We have the wizard, Sarah herself. She's going to break down everything, answer all of our questions, and find meaning in our life, all in an hour or less. Isn't that right, Sarah?
That sounds absolutely amazing. Yeah, I'm just so happy to be able to share my 2 cents as well, because I've lived through it. I've lived through the school experience. I've lived through the uni experience. And yeah, I just felt like no one taught you enough about how to study. It was more just like putting content down in our brains. And it wasn't about, the best way to put that content in our brains and how we should use it to, do exams and do tests and stuff like that. So yeah, happy
Beautiful.
to be here.
Good. So Sarah, let's start off. So let's take you back to school, right? You're at university, and let's just share some stories about going through some different studying techniques. What worked for you early on? What did you find didn't work early on? And how you kind of got to where you are right now, giving people productivity tips on TikTok with over 30,000 followers.
Oh, I'm so grateful for that. I just didn't realize, I didn't expect how many people would actually be interested in this type of thing. Like I thought, I'd hop on and give my 2 cents, but I wasn't expecting, the support and for that specific topic in particular, because you think people go on TikTok to have fun. But yeah, so anyways, to answer the question, it was all literally trial and error for me. I tried everything. In school, it was mainly just the note taking, a bit of flashcards here and there because the teacher would instigate it. But on our personal end, it was literally just looking at the textbook or looking at some notes and making notes out of that. And it worked. It wasn't like it didn't work, but it just took a lot more time to do the same sort of thing and a lot more effort to get the same results in the end. So then I got to uni and I didn't really know any different either. So I kept doing that same technique because that's what you think is the most correct. Just, taking the passive notes. That's just the default, I guess, study method. And then I just felt like it wasn't working that well. Like I was spending so much time just writing notes. And in uni, the content is so much more extensive than school. So they shove down content down your throat, and which is fine. Like we're learning and studying and stuff like that. But it was just so much to handle, plus have a social life, plus, do all extracurricular activities. So then that's when I started getting myself getting into that productivity type YouTube world. And that's when I started listening to people and watching how they studied, lots of med students online that were giving advice. So I was looking at that. And then I just started trying literally everything. I tried annotating notes. I tried to just make flashcards. I tried to take notes, then make flashcards, everything under the sun. I tried it. And I just came to the conclusion that it actually differs for each topic as well. And that's the thing, when someone asks me for advice, it depends on the topic. If it's a memorization based topic, flashcards and enjoy yourself and then you'll be fine. But with something that's more content heavy that you have to actually understand and apply that knowledge to something else, you're going to need another technique as well as flashcards, to memorize the small things. But yeah, I just think everything has its own technique, and I think it's just a trial and error method for the person themselves. So I'm just wanting to give everything that I have so that they can sort of make their own informed decisions on what the best thing to do for themselves. But yeah,
that's awesome, Sarah. That's awesome. That's sweet.
Yeah, my 2 cents on that. But yeah, how do you study? Do you have any specific techniques that you use?
Well, at the moment, my friend, very much like yourself, I'm still bouncing around from method to method. What I have found out is rereading the textbook 2 or 3 times doesn't always do it for me. If I just keep rereading, it's endless. But I love flashcards. I'm a huge fan of that. right now, a friend of mine a few months ago gave me this tip, Brandon Turner, shout out to you. He was like, Daniel, if you can, turn your notes into questions. So like, let's say, if you have a note that says, blah, 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 then you
Yeah.
turn that into a question. What does blah, blah, blah mean? And then you answer that question. This way you can think a little bit more actively rather than passively. But what are your thoughts on that?
Oh, yeah,
Productivity
totally.
guru.
Let's stop it. But yes, I think like that's awesome. And when you do the question, it's like you're practicing for the exam. And I think this is specific to topics that have an exam at the end or have a test at the
Yeah,
end,
for sure.
where you're like wanting to practice how to retrieve that information from your brain instead of just putting it into your brain. Because that's what we have to like start practicing, like that retrieval process. But yeah, so that's even that way with taking notes and the answering the questions. I have a friend that he does it on Notion. He does this whole thing on Notion where it's like a website that you can like kind of make your own. You can like customize it how you like, and he'll make little subheadings that you can. It's like a drop down thing.
Mm-hmm.
So he'll have the question, and then he'll have the answer, but then he'll hide the answer, and then read the question.
Gotcha.
Does that make sense?
Yeah,
Yeah.
totally.
So that's a really cool way to do it, and it takes less time because you type it, but you're actually retrieving it. But then sometimes, like I like personally writing out things. So yeah, this depends. But I really like the Cornell method as well. I need to make a video about that, but it's the where you have like a column to the left, and then that's when you write the topic or a question, and then to the right is the answer, and that's where you hide. When you like go over
I see.
again, you hide the notes, so then you can just go through. So yeah, I think it's just all about finding each individual person's preference, and yeah.
Well, what would you say, Sarah, is the most common question that you get about productivity or with respect to study?
Oh, good question. I think it's more, I think it's a lot on how to study. I think that's the main question that I've been getting. And more so tips on, I've actually been getting a lot of questions about like career paths and what I should do and why, like, how do I know what path I want to take if I don't have any idea? And I just feel like that question just has so many answers to it firstly, but it's all just I've just realized it all comes back down to your passion and what you're good at, what you like. And if you just keep doing that, like for example, like I'm a perfect example of this. I started in year 12, like last year of high school.
Mm-hmm.
I was like, I have no idea what I want to do. So then I just sort of looked at my topics in year 12 because every year I was like, okay, I'm just going to keep doing what I like, what I'm doing well at. And then that's how I sort of ended up picking my last topics. And then to get into uni, I was like, okay, well, nutrition was like my favorite topic and it was the one I did best at. So I continued that onto uni and I did I started in a Bachelor of Human Nutrition. And then I was like, I'm not really feeling fulfilled enough. So then I swapped because I wasn't enjoying it as much. So I swapped to something that I probably would have enjoyed more. And then that led me to medical science. And then even in the degree, you choose a lot of your topics, like it's very flexible. So I just kept choosing everything that I was enjoying, like pharmacology, anatomy. I loved all that sort of stuff. So that kept me going. And then now I'm here in a like specialty, I guess you could call it, in pharmacology. And like now, the opportunities are so like broad now. I can sort of, not broad, but like I've got lots more opportunities now that I found passion for something and, so you end up finding your way, like eventually is what I'm trying to tell people, that you don't have to have, oh, actually, this is an interesting, I want to hear your 2 cents on this. The whole fact of not having like 5 and 10 year goals, but more having daily or like weekly goals instead. Because I think that you don't lose, but you don't know what's going to happen in the future. So if you just take one, like if you have the daily goals and be like, okay, I'm doing this, you end up getting to that 5-10 year goal. But instead of saying, I'm going to buy a car, you'll say, okay, I'm going to save up $500 a week. And then as a byproduct of that, you'll buy a car. If that makes sense. Yeah, I really
Yeah,
want to hear
totally.
your opinion on this.
I love it, Sarah. I love the aspect. I think I've definitely heard arguments from both sides. On one side, I've heard, oh, Daniel, where are you going to be 5 years from now? And I get the idea, right? You want to know your destination. You want to have an idea so you're not surprised. However, for a lot of people who don't know, which is very normal, I didn't know after year 12, after grade 12, that can be a little anxiety provoking. Like, I don't know. Like, should I know? I don't know where I'm going to be in 10 years. But I think if you can break that down, because I'm a huge believer in habits, right? If you can show me your habits, if you show me what you do on a regular basis, the people who you hang around, that's what 5 to 10 years is going to be made from, right? So I absolutely love it. I think if you want a physique, a great body, just looking at working out every day, right? Or doing something small every day, working on your business every day. I love that attitude of it's practical, it's right in front of you, and you're not just sitting with your own thoughts. You know what I mean?
Yes.
Hypothetically and this and that. And so I completely agree with you.
Okay, that's awesome. Yeah, because I've I was the same, and I've been trying to think about it from both ends. And it's like, okay, well, we've always been told to, think about your future and what are you going to do in 5, 10 years. Yeah, but I think it's just good to have like an idea, like a just a
Mhm.
general concept of where you want to end up. But yeah, so that means you've read Atomic Habits, I believe.
Oh,
If you're still
actually, I have not. That's on the to-do list. That's on the to-do. Would
yes,
you
you have
recommend it?
to. It's such a good book, so good, so much practical stuff from it as
Oh,
well,
yeah.
and yeah, he
I'll write
gives
that
lots of
down.
advice. So yeah, go read Atomic Habits. It's really, really good.
Cool. Atomic
But yeah,
habits.
so yeah, and just the daily habits thing I think is so important. Even with that comes back to studying as well, when you just sitting down and studying every day. It doesn't have to be a lot. It doesn't have to be the most extensive study session, but if you just have a physical sit down session every day, and I feel like that helps you, create a routine. And I feel like that helps a lot with time management, because then, you're not sitting down every time you need to do something. You're sitting down every time and then just sort of slowly chipping away at what you have to do. So yeah, I think that just the habits thing comes across or can be applied to anywhere, any
For
aspect
sure.
is what I'm trying to say. Yeah.
So, Sarah, when people think about studying, what do you think comes to mind?
I think they think it's not upsetting, stressful and like boring and all the negative words I'm trying to think of. But I just think, yeah, if you genuinely enjoy what you're learning and what you're studying, I think it can be so fun. Like myself is a perfect example again with the nutrition. I was like, this is boring. I'm not having fun. And then I went to medical science and I was having the time of my life. I was learning so much about the body. Like obviously at points there's going to be stressful times and there's going to be due dates, there's going to be deadlines.
Of
That's,
course.
that's what's uni and that's what has to train you for life, I guess. But just the general like idea of it, it's just, I think if you find passion for something, you should really enjoy what you're studying. And I think that also helps with you doing like academically better in that topic as well. But yeah.
Awesome. Really well said, my friend. Really well said. I think, unfortunately, when people hear studying, they always think of like back to middle school or high school when they're like,
Yeah.
oh man, like I don't like studying. They associate it with cramming and reading something that they don't like and just memorizing it. But if, you go up to someone who loves acting and you say, hey man, you're going to study acting, right? You come to me and you say, Daniel, you're going to study mental health. Well, now I'm super excited, right? So you
Mm.
can totally, like, why wouldn't you want to learn and grow and gain more knowledge so that you can share that knowledge with other people? So I think it's a really good idea if you can spin that mindset part of it.
Yeah, exactly. And yeah, I think I totally agree with the mindset as well. Like you may, if you just sort of switch it and then it's just all perspective, I think. I think Jay Shetty did a really interesting podcast on learning. And, he said something about if you, if you don't learn, then it actually affects your health as well. Something like that.
Mm.
I don't want to quote it just in case I get it wrong. But yeah, it just like affects so much of our life. And if we're just constantly building our knowledge and, you just get so many different perspectives on life, so many different lessons. And yeah, you can just add it to every day. So yeah, I think studying should be put in a better light. But I agree. I think it all stems from high school and, the earlier ages where it's kind of, I don't know, I don't think the experience is as pleasant for people, especially when children that age are so creative and they have all these things that they want to do, or they want to do this art, they're like the graphic design, who knows, but then it's more so they just have to be like crammed into like the math, science, that basic stuff. But even like researching skincare or makeup or whatever, that's still learning. And I think people mistake learning and studying for science, maths instead of all that other stuff.
Totally, Sarah. One thing that I absolutely loved, so sorry to interrupt you,
No, no.
a gem that you dropped maybe 4 or 5 minutes ago was you were like, oh, Daniel, like people reach out to me and they're like, hey, like, what should I do? What should I major in? And I love that you were like, hey, like you have to find your own passion. right? Just because, you love, let's say, makeup doesn't mean that that other person is going to love makeup, right? Or if I tell you, hey man, going into, let's say, public speaking might be a great idea. Well, what if you have stage fright? It's not a great idea for you, right? So I just think it's so important. And I love that you really emphasize the individual differences. As I can give you tips, I can guide you, but at the end of the day, you really have to look at, what are you passionate about? What are you good at? What do you enjoy doing? And naturally that's going to differ from person to person.
That's so true. And I just think, I also think like income now is a huge aspect of career choices, but I just,
Mm-hmm.
that if you just find passion for something, it really, really shows in an energy that you give to other people when you're doing that work. For example, if someone, for example, let's say makeup, I'm not hugely passionate about makeup, so I probably wouldn't excel in that field. I don't think I have the passion. Like, I enjoy it, I like it, but I just don't have that, internal fire that, loves this makeup sensation thing. But for someone else, possibly, if they study makeup and find passion in it, and they will do so well because, the clients will feel like they want them to be there, like they are putting 100% energy. It ends up not feeling like studying, it ends up just feeling like life. It just doesn't feel like you're separating, for example, with uni, like now I kind of associate it with my not to say that uni is my life, but it's not like I'm going to uni to study and now I'm coming home and I'm not going to study and learn. Like, life is always learning. It just depends on whether you're learning about science, whether you're learning about mental health, or yeah.
Totally. Now imagine someone with that sort of perspective where one person says, oh, I have to study, whereas another person who loves makeup says, I'm going to have fun. And when you're
Yes.
talking about who can do it for longer, well, the person who loves it can obviously put in more hours.
Yeah, exactly. And it just, exactly, and the hours thing is spot on, I think, because you end up going above and beyond what you have to do, and people see that, and and it sometimes comes across that you didn't even realize that you're putting in the extra effort because you love it so much and you just want to be there, but or you want to do what you're doing. So I just think I read something the other day that people don't remember what you say or what you hear, they remember how they made you feel. So I just feel like that passion will always come across in energy in some form. Sounds really spiritual, but I just think you can feel someone's energy, and that lasts longer than anything someone says or makes up and has to remember to say and says it. It's more like the energy of wanting them to be there.
I totally believe you. I totally agree with you too. You see someone when they're doing their passion, they act differently. They're themselves, they're energetic, they're so free. And people look at them and you're going, man, like where's my passion?
Exactly. Oh my goodness. I totally agree. And then that's where that sort of stems in. But if everyone just follows their path, and income, and I feel like money will come. I mean, depending on career, obviously, sometimes you might have to work harder for that or less. But I just think that, yeah, opportunity will come with passion, and opportunity, I guess, you can monetize off that as well. But yeah, if
Totally.
that's what your main concern is for success, but there's obviously other, you know, what would you call it? Criteria for success. But yeah.
Of course. Now, Sarah, just going back to that productivity aspect, a very
Mhm.
interesting perspective that I heard from a Gary Vaynerchuk was said, hey, listen, if you are not putting in all of your effort into a subject, it doesn't necessarily mean that you're lazy. But what does that tell you about how passionate you are about what you're doing? Maybe if
Mm.
you get a low grade in a class, but you're an extremely hard worker when it comes to your dance classes and it comes to, working on your art projects, but for whatever reason, you don't do too well in one class. What does that tell you about how passionate you are about what you're doing right now? Maybe it's a good sign. Maybe it's a reflection of, hey man, you're in the wrong field. Possibly, possibly. But what do you think
Yeah.
about that?
Yeah, that's such a good point. And oh my God, I love Gary Vee. He says the most amazing
Oh,
things
you
that I've
said it.
like carried on for life. Like, it sits in
Same
my
boat,
mind.
my friend.
Tell me
Same
what
boat.
to do. Yeah, no, but I just think with that whole passion thing, like you won't even have to try to put in the effort. It will just become so easy that, especially when you're, for example, I really enjoyed maths. So this sounds really weird. I was really excited to come home and do my maths homework all the
Wow.
time. But for example, maybe science or something, chemistry, I wasn't that passionate about. And I was like, put that to the side.
Yeah, for sure.
Um, and that also shows, and I think that's such a good point to make, that it's not about, it shows your passion in as a byproduct of, your efforts into that certain thing. But yeah, totally agree. Love
Totally.
Gary.
Good. Yeah. Oh, me too, my friend. Me too. No productivity like no tomorrow. So, Sarah, if someone is listening to this podcast and is like, "Oh God, Sarah, I have an exam coming up in a couple of days. How early is too early to start prepping, and how should I prep?" And we can use like example subjects, like if it's math as opposed to
Yeah.
something memorizing. What would you say?
Yeah. So I feel like, I think always a good starting point is about not to study from a month, but kind of understand your exam topics a month before. This doesn't have to be you sitting down studying, but just to have a general idea of what you're going to be putting yourself into in a few weeks, possibly. And I think it all comes kind of down to time management as well. I'm sort of talking more about now, like reducing stress when it comes to that exam period.
Mm,
But for the actual, because I think that also helps with productivity at the time and memorization. But for actual applying your knowledge to the exam, we'll say for maths, I guess maths is huge just for practicing questions. There is no kind of memorization involved unless you have to do memorize a formula, pardon me, memorize a formula or stuff like that. But when it comes down to the actual questions, you have to just practice, 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 practice. And that's where you can get hold of, practice exams or questions online. Even if you just message or email your teacher, they're always so happy to help with that thing, or they can even point you in the right direction to get, the questions that you need. With something like science or something with more concept-based stuff with memorization, I would say I think that note-taking method that you mentioned earlier with if you're taking notes, just make questions from them,
mm,
or usually the subject will have learning outcomes that come with them, and that is sort of the expectation of what the teacher needs of you for the topic, if that makes sense. So even from those, you can make questions and then formulate your notes to surround those, because usually those learning outcomes are taking components from each part of the topic and then combining them to apply that knowledge into a question. So if you already do that beforehand and put all that information together to answer like a broader question, then I think that's such a good way to answer those science specific topics, because usually, they take lots of bits from everywhere and put it together and ask you a question. And so that's one thing. And then I would say also the flashcards. Anki is just awesome for that with spaced repetition. Just, you make the flashcard and then you can revise it after a few days, or depending on how hard you found that particular flashcard, you can revise it and revise it and revise it. And that's how memorization works, right? You just have to keep sort of going at it. But with Anki, it's good. It separates the flashcards that you found easy from the flashcards you found hard. So you're not wasting your time memorizing the easy ones that you already know. You're kind of
mm.
focusing on what you don't know. And I think that also really, really helps, because sometimes I feel like when we study, we're going from start to bottom, right? And usually the start is kind of the easier
For
introductory type
sure.
stuff. And when you get to like the middle or the end, it's more the harder stuff. And then you've lost energy. You don't want to study anymore. You're kind of sick of it. And so I think with Anki, you can sort of rearrange how that sort of works. You go from sort of hard to easy.
Mm.
Or
Now, how do you spell that, Sarah? Sorry to interrupt. How do you spell that, Anki?
Anki.
Anki. Beautiful. Awesome. Sorry about that. Please continue.
Yeah, no, that's okay. It's a desktop app for free. However, it is paid, I think, on a phone. But I've been recommending people use Quizlet or something like that for the phone,
Mm.
because
Quizlet.
it's annoying because you're always on your phone. It'd be good to like just memorize while you're out and about and stuff like that. But yeah, that one is paid. But yeah, I just think Anki is like life changing for me personally. I know a friend that he used Anki a few days before a neurology exam, like a huge exam, and he
Mhm.
ended up doing really well because he literally just used
Wow.
Anki. He made all the flashcards in a night, and then he just went through them and just did all the hard ones that he found, and the ones he knew he just skipped over, and then that just reduced the time and maximized the actual effort, like the efficacy. Oh, how would I say that? Yeah, the actual
I get
memorization.
what you mean. I get what you mean.
Yeah,
Totally.
thank you.
No worries. No worries. Good. 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 Awesome.
But
Anki.
yeah, the essay type. Oh, sorry. I would just want to add one thing about like
Please.
essay-based exams. That one I have not too much experience in, so I can't really say too much about it. But I've heard mind maps help really well with
Mm.
essay type topics, and thinking about how the topics come together and stuff like that. So yeah.
Totally.
And I guess it depends on what type of learner you are. I think Anki is really good with visual because you can add in photographs really quickly and just hide
Mm.
certain aspects of it. So then you can like memorize, like if it's a label or something pointing, you can just memorize that. So it's, yeah, Anki is amazing.
Are you a visual learner, Sarah?
Yes, I think I am. I think I'm mostly visual. I do think I'm a bit of an auditory as well, because I do
Mm.
like listening to audiobooks and podcasts, and I think that's usually resonates with me a lot, and I remember most things. But yeah, when it comes to like exam settings, when I have to retrieve information, I'm usually like thinking back to that page or that picture or that.
Mm.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. What about you? What sort of
Okay.
learner?
I'm more visual myself.
Yeah.
So I prefer to, like, if I was thinking of like if I have to be blindfolded and someone tells me what to do, as opposed to no one says a word but they just show me it physically. I feel like
Yes.
I would do better if I was watching it.
Oh, totally agree. Totally agree. And I think that help. That's kind of more of a, you know, workplace type thing as well. You know, if someone's a visual learner, then instead of, you know, telling them you do this, then this, then this, then this, and this, just, you know, have them shadow you for a day and show them this is what you do. Because I totally agree. That helps so much more. And you can, and then when you go back into that footsteps, you can remember, okay, they did this, they did this.
Totally. Just
Yeah.
to add my 2 cents onto that, Sarah. Many people don't know this. I actually work as a swimming instructor, and one of the things that yes, it's super cool. We get told about obviously there's different kinds of learning, and what I didn't realize is when I first started, I was super big on explaining. So I would explain everything. So it's great
Wow.
for people who are auditory learners. The bad thing is when you have kids who are 7, 8, 9 years old, the attention span is very, very short. So what happened was this one kid would just never get it. 3 of them would, 1 of them would. I was like, "What's up with this kid?" Until one lesson, I was like, "Hey, buddy, watch me." Did the thing, your turn. 4 words, and he did it perfectly. I was like, holy smokes, it wasn't the kid, it was me. He's just a visual learner.
Oh my, that is such a good story to tell. Oh, and that's really cool that you're a swimming instructor. That's awesome.
Thank you very
I wish I could
much.
swim. I sink.
Oh man.
But yeah, I just think in schools, especially, I think maybe more now so than ever, they've been incorporating this type of, you know, stuff with
For
visuals
sure.
and
For sure, for
story.
sure.
But and that's the annoying thing I find as well. It's upsetting that some kids feel like, because that kid might have felt that like, why am I not getting it? Like, what's wrong with
Totally.
me? And I think that really hurts people's like, probably not to that extent for your specific example, but sometimes if it's happening over and over and over again at school, then you end up feeling like you have really bad self-esteem issues because you're like, oh, okay, all my friends are getting it. Why am I not getting it? Like, is there something
Hmm.
with me? But it's honestly just the fact, like you said, exactly, just the different types of learning styles and how, you know, someone might get it like this and someone, but then I guess it's hard. Like, how do you teach a bunch of like a whole class of students with different learning styles? And I guess that's where you have to really try and use different techniques. And yeah,
Yeah,
it's
yeah,
hard,
totally.
but you just have to, it's just good to keep in mind, I think, more than
Of
anything.
course. Of course. Just be aware, right?
Yeah, yeah, I think that helps a lot. Hmm.
Sarah, my friend, what have we not touched on? What's still on your mind? What do we still have to get to?
I think that I think I want to talk about like self-esteem, because I think
Awesome.
self-esteem stems so many issues.
Go for
Like,
it.
I think it's just like a burner. And if you don't have your good self-esteem, I think that just stems into, you know, not wanting to find passion or something and not wanting to do something. And, you know, I just think it's the foundation of so many vital things in life. And I think that self-esteem sort of, you can count how many times I'm going to say self-esteem now. But like, even I've noticed with expectations that need to be met by parents maybe, or other things, or like even with schools, like if they don't meet those certain expectations, they don't feel as good as they should feel, but in maybe other circumstances that they might excel in things that, you know, that aren't assessed on in school. For example, with the whole creativity side and art, like sometimes people could do so well in that field, but in school they're kind of restricted in that that's their best topic, but it's not really highly regarded as a topic. And then that's when, you know, self-esteem crushes come in and they're like, oh, well, you know, I'm not doing as well in these science topics. Like, this is what I want to do. And then everyone's like, oh, like, you know, you have to really think about it. And I think this all comes back down to mental health as well. Like, it's so important to look after that and, you know, find purpose in yourself, in your being on this earth. And then if you have a purpose, you feel like, okay, yes, I'm here for a reason. I have a mission. And you don't have to be clear on that mission, but you just have to know that, yes, you have purpose in this life. And then, just knowing that you have worth and someone, you know, that you have worth and someone talking to you or someone is like a blessing for anyone, involved. So I just think that really sets your, I just think nowadays, the mental health issue is really, really strong, obviously in our in our younger generations. And I think that, more needs to be done to sort of help just that whole self, because I just think it stems, but whether that be meditation or, I think exercise helps that so much. I mean, I think these are all things that we all know and, understand, and appreciate, but I think putting them into practice, there's not as many like practical tips to tell you sort of how to do that. Like lots of things of saying, okay, you have to study, you have to exercise, you have to do this, but it's the steps in between as to how and what the best way to do it, I think, is kind of not touched on as much. But yeah, I think we're moving in the right direction. But yeah, I think if there are any issues involved in someone's life, I think not always, but mostly can come back down to self-esteem. And I think with passion, that also stems from that as well. And yeah, so many things, purpose and self-esteem. So yeah, that's like my little 2 cents rant on that. I just think I'm really passionate about it because I see so many of my friends or people I know that they they are so intelligent, so smart. It's not the fact that they're not smart or anything like that. They just don't have they don't feel purposeful enough, or they don't have a drive or the self-esteem to go pursue those things. But
I love that,
yeah.
Sarah. I never thought about that link until now, until you put it now. Because like my biggest thing is like finding purpose, right? Like everything that I do, I call it like the journey to self-awareness. You're trying to figure out who you are, what your passion is. But the way that you worded it makes so much sense. If you have a self-esteem, which is down in the dumps, I'm not expecting you to be fully motivated, waking up at 6 in the morning and going after it. Like you have to have like your self-esteem has to be in the right place. And going back to what you said earlier, if you're someone who connects your self-esteem, your worth, and unfortunately it sucks. I do know people who do this, and it's hard because you find yourself doing it subconsciously. Is you connect your self-esteem and your worth to your grades, and all of a sudden when you fail a test, it's like you just took a bullet, and you don't see that you got a 99% in art because it's not as practical, it's not as valued in society as a science or as a math.
Mm-hmm. Totally agree. And it's really upsetting because, I feel like there's so many intelligent mind, and I guess everyone is intelligent in their own way. Like there's
Mm-hmm,
no
mm-hmm.
smart person, there's no dumb, I don't even want to say the word, but like there's no sort of, there's no two types of people in this world. Everyone is smart. And I think that's where lots of people get mistaken and people say, okay, I didn't get 100% in my maths test, I'm not smart. Like, yes, you are smart, but possibly not in maths. Like that, maybe maths isn't your thing, and that's totally okay. You've got however many other topics to, handle and excel in as well. So yeah, I think unfortunately, that whole self-esteem thing probably starts in school, and where you're not getting the grades that, are good, which define you as smart or not. And then, yeah, like even I found so many people are not like, not as smart in, I'm doing this in quotation marks,
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
in like school, but then when they come out of school and they're like these entrepreneurs and they're like marketing geniuses and they know how to run a business, but you just don't get taught that in school. I guess
Totally,
in
a
college
thousand percent.
stuff you can learn that, but yeah, I just think emphasizing the fact that everyone is intelligent in their own way just helps so much. And it's not the fact that you're not intelligent; it's just how you use that intelligence on.
I think that's so important. I think like in terms of like just like then your productivity, right? Then how you want to learn. Because if you're, everything starts off from your self-esteem, as yourself said, right? Then you get that motivation. Then you can look at productivity, what works for you. Then you won't compare yourself to your friend who's getting 95% in calculus.
Yeah, totally. I think comparing. I mean, I think this has been sort of talked about to death, but like comparing is just evil. Like if you
Jesus.
can't really compare, you can't compare yourself to anyone. Like everyone has their own path, and you might have similar paths, yes, but there's so much that differs you between you and that person. And you're not the same person. You both can offer different things, and yeah, I think that. I mean, it's. I think that's one of the things that is very easy to say, but very hard to actually put into practice. And I think the steps to take, the steps to kind of improve that area is something that I'm still working on, particularly as well. Like I'm really trying to find how I can't compare myself to others and just, focus on what I'm doing. But yeah, I think it's one of the hardest topics to kind of understand and like give advice on, because yeah, that's what I'm trying to figure out too. So yeah.
I would say even Sarah that, and I completely feel you. I'm in the same boat. I always try to compare myself to myself as opposed to someone else. But it happens. It happens when you're on Instagram, when you're comparing your Friday nights, when you're comparing your relationships, comparing your financial stability. I totally get it. I would argue that what we're talking about goes back to self-esteem. That the better your self-esteem is, the less you can get pulled down by seeing other people doing well for themselves. In my 2 cents. What do you think about
Oh,
that?
totally agree. And I think the fact that when you have the self-esteem to, you know, truly and from your bottom of your heart congratulate someone or on their successes or whatever, I think that just shows so much in your self-esteem and your worth and your passion. You're like, okay, yes, you are doing amazing. And this is what I like. I have my own successes that I know I'm going to achieve, or hopefully I achieve. And, you know, we can both, there's room for success for everyone. It's not this one person that has to have success. And I think that's where people get caught up, where, you know, they see someone else being successful. So, oh, why can't I do that? But yes, you can do that. Like, there's so much room for everyone. So yeah, I think I totally agree with that. The fact that, you know, comparing and, you know, congratulating and it all comes back down to self-esteem. So I think, yeah, there needs to be more tips to sort of, or like practical things on how to actually improve that self-esteem to begin with.
Let's do it, Sarah. Let's give it to them to tie the knot up on this beautiful basket. How can someone increase their self-esteem?
I think that the main thing, from what I've experienced and what others have told me, I think exercise helps a lot. Like, that's just the one thing I think that stems so many, like when you exercise, you're feeling good about yourself, you're doing something that helps yourself only. And, you know, it also the chemicals that actually get released as well. That's like a whole nother story. But just the physical act of going and helping yourself. And I think even the self-care thing, and, you know, sometimes I think even being very self-disciplined, I think I've experienced that when I feel like I'm disciplining myself, not like, you know, with a whip, but like, like doing
Oh man.
things that are sort of helping me, and not, for example, if when I'm doing my work, if I say, okay, I'm going to get my work done, and if I don't get my work done, I'm not going to go on YouTube tonight.
Mm.
Then, so you got that motivation, but also if I don't get it done, I'm actually not going to go on YouTube that night. And I think that helps my self-esteem as well. The fact that, you know, I'm able to control my actions, and, you know, that's what I've found personally. When I'm saying it out loud, it doesn't sound like it would help, but yeah, that's just my experience. That when
No, no, it's awesome.
when I
I
have
agree.
that discipline, it helps me boost my self-esteem and the fact that I have worth and I'm in control of my life, I guess. But yeah, I think it kind of stems back to controlling your life, now that I'm saying it. Being in control. Like, people say that with exercise, that's like one of the things that they control in life. You know, they can control how much they go and exercise. They can control muscle gain or weight loss or stuff like that. And now I'm thinking with the self-discipline thing, I'm just like tying them literally right
Go
now.
for it.
But yeah. So yeah, there's so many things to say about that. That's like my experience and what my friends and people I've surrounded myself with.
Exercise is always a good one because, like you said yourself, it's in your hands. It's something that you can control. It's
Yeah,
good.
exactly. Totally agree.
And not to mention, then you look better, then you feel better, right? I mean, there's huge, right, sciences and studies that prove that yes, actually, exercise does do huge things for your self-esteem. And
Absolutely.
it's definitely, I think exercise is an awesome one because, again, I think unfortunately there's a lot of people who I know who worry about things that aren't in their control, like, let's
Yeah.
say, the height, or let's say things that require plastic surgery, or things that are literally like not in your hands in that aspect. So I think exercise is an amazing one. And I honestly think just accomplishing a goal will do wonders for you. Setting up goals and accomplishing them, no matter the severity of the goal.
That's such a good point. Oh my goodness. Yeah, even if it's like a small one. I
Mm-hmm.
think, yeah, that's what, yeah, no, that's a really, really good point, actually. Like, just even waking up this time a day, tick it off, you know, have like
Yeah.
that little tick box. I think that does wonders. Oh, I totally agree. That's a really good point.
Thank you. Thank you, sir.
Oh, thank you. Seriously, for letting me be here and sharing my knowledge and sharing my 2 cents. I
Of
honestly
course.
appreciate
Of course, now, Sarah, to be honest with you, I could talk with you, my friend, for hours, 5, 6, 7, 8 hours, but I don't want to keep you.
it.
So, Sarah, my friend, is there any last bits, any last things that we want to leave the listeners off with? What is the last thing that we can say?
honestly think we've covered lots of things that I'm really passionate about, but I think the main thing, the take-home message that I want to come across to everyone, or for what everyone listening to hear, is the fact that you are intelligent, you are smart. It's just you finding that pathway or career that will, you know, elevate that intelligence or recognize that intelligence. So it's not the fact that you're not, it's just you trying to find something that, you know, will recognize that.
Love it,
Yeah.
Sarah. Love it. Sarah, my friend, where can the wonderful listeners find you on social media? What are your handles?
Also, I have my TikTok. That's like my main posting, you know, my main social media. So that's just literally Sarah Badaoui. So SarahBadaoui. Lots of vowels, I know. And then the same thing on Instagram, but just so Sarah_Badaoui. And yeah, that's pretty much it for now. But yeah, thank you so much.
Fantastic. Thank you so much for being here, Sarah. I really appreciated it.
So much for all your time. Honestly, really appreciate it.
Of course, listeners, I hope you enjoyed. This has been another episode of the Daniel Teaches Experience. Have an absolutely sensational day. This is goodbye from Daniel and from Sarah.
See ya.
Bye-bye.